Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Talking News. This week I wanted to share a short update following a really positive feedback and chat session that we had this week with some of our members. It was really nice to have the chance to spend some time with some of the members that I have not yet met, which was really valuable. We spoke openly about events, activities, and the new reduced newsletter that we're trialling for this quarter. The feedback was really positive overall, so I really appreciate that, and thanks to you all that turned up and engaged with us. It was really so nice to see so many of you turn up for this feedback and chat, and it really shows how much you care about what we offer and our services, and we really want you to contribute in shaping it. We are all working really hard for you, and your feedback will help us guide our decisions and priorities moving forward. So I really want to encourage anyone listening to stay in touch. Share ideas, comments, or concerns. Every conversation helps us strengthen what we offer and ensures services reflect what you value the most. Thank you to everyone who took part. I really look forward to meeting with more of you and over the coming months continuing these conversations. Until then, all the best and take care.
Here is this week's charity news, 30th of January 2026.
Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
On Tuesday, our monthly coffee morning will be at the Old Smithy in Godshill between 10:30 and 12 p.m. Linda and Yvonne will be on hand to welcome you.
Our yoga at Millbrook House has unfortunately been cancelled until April. This is due to volunteer unavailability, and we apologise for any inconvenience.
Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Mix and Mingle is on Thursday at Millbrook House. We have a waiting list, so if you would like to join it, please call the office.
On Thursday, our monthly book group will be meeting at Newport Library at 2 p.m. They will discuss their latest book. This is free for any member, so if you enjoy listening to books and wish to join the group, please go along to the library and you'll be made very welcome.
The fundraising committee are appealing for any items suitable for raffles, tombolas, etc. that can be used throughout the year. If you are able to drop off at Millbrook or if you are unable to come in, please call the office and we can arrange collection.
Our Easter knitting campaign is now ready and the patterns are available, so if you are able to knit or have a friend, neighbour or family member who can knit and would like to knit for us to raise valuable funds, please call and speak to Susan, who can either send out either a pattern or email them to you. Our plan is for the Easter novelties to go on sale on the 1st of March.
This is Chris reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. New trees planted at Lake Cliff Gardens as part of Bay Wide Green initiative. Lake Parish councillors have backed a bay-wide tree planting and hedge laying project aimed at boosting the area's natural environment. The initiative, funded by the Tree Council, has seen local councillors Paul Brading and Tony Hartley helping with the planting at Lake Cliff Gardens. Working alongside the Isle of Wight Council, Lake Tree Warden Tony Hartley secured a range of new trees, including sweet gum, elm lutece, Callery pear, redspire, Scots pine, and pin oak. Additional trees have also been provided for nearby Los Altos and the local cemetery. Tony Hartley said the scheme highlights the importance of the investing in the natural environment, adding, "Thanks to all the volunteers involved, we hope these trees will enhance the experience of residents and visitors this summer and for many years to come." Paul Brading said the planting forms part of a wider improvements in the area, including ongoing investment in the grounds maintenance at Lake Cliff Gardens, the new toilet block, and an application for funding for a free water point as part of the Bay Place plan.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Key dates confirmed ahead of Isle of Wight local elections in May. Preparations are underway for May's local elections on the Isle of Wight, with key dates now confirmed and polling arrangements beginning to take shape. Polling stations across the island are currently being booked, while plans are also being put in place to recruit and deploy staff to run them on polling day. The elections will take place on Thursday, May the 7th, 5 years after Islanders last voted in Isle of Wight council elections in May 2021. That election saw the previous Conservative administration lose its majority, with the Alliance Group taking control of County Hall. A council spokesperson confirmed that administrative preparations are well underway. They said the council is in the process of booking polling stations for each electoral division and arranging staffing and other logistical requirements. Residents who vote by post are also being reminded that, due to a change in the law, anyone who originally applied for a postal vote before January 2024 must reapply by the end of this month. The Isle of Wight Council has also published a timetable of proceedings ahead of the election. Last date to register to vote, Monday, April the 20th. Deadline for postal vote applications, 5 p.m, Tuesday, April the 21st. Polling day, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m, Thursday, May the 7th. Voters are being encouraged to check their registration details and apply early for postal or proxy votes to avoid missing key deadlines.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Major policing reform plans slammed by PCC Donna Jones. Proposed policing reforms, described as the biggest changes in service history, have drawn criticism from Hampshire and Isle of Wight's Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones. Major reforms to policing in England and Wales are being set out by the Home Secretary, with plans reportedly including a reduction in the number of police forces nationwide. Responding to the proposals, Donna Jones, Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, has raised a number of concerns. The government claims merging forces will save money. I believe the real reason for announcing these reforms is because 18 months ago, the government laid out plans to introduce 13,000 more neighbourhood police officers across England and Wales, but they've failed as they couldn't find the funding. I'm not against some form of police reform, but I think reducing force numbers from 43 to a reported 12 would result in forces which are far too big and unruly. Police performance would slip as a consequence. Another concern for me is the government's proposed timescale. They want this done by the end of the next term of Parliament, which is 2034. That's too far down the road and will distract core policing. It's also a real shame they're taking the voice away from local people. The successors of police and crime commissioners need to be able to hold the police forces to account on behalf of the public. The police should not be marking their own homework, and this change must be balanced with robust scrutiny. I want to reassure people across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight that having local officers out in the heart of our communities remains one of my top priorities. We've been doing this here for the last 2 years with the introduction of local bobbies. It's proved so successful that it's been replicated by the government nationally. Policing must be rooted in the communities it serves if we are to be as efficient as possible in responding to crime. The government has said the reforms are intended to modernise policing and improve efficiency, but critics warn the changes could weaken local accountability and community-focused policing.
This is Chris, reading an article from the Island Echo. Consultation opens on tourism tax as MP calls for local views. Joe Robertson, MP, is urging local tourism and hospitality businesses to share their views on the government's proposed new tourism tax, warning it could have significant implications for the island's visitor economy. The government has launched a consultation on proposals to give combined mayoral authorities in England new powers to introduce an overnight visitor levy on visitor accommodation. Together with Hampshire, the Isle of Wight is set to get a new mayor in 2028. The levy could apply to most forms of short-term, commercially let accommodation used by leisure or business visitors, including hotels, guest houses and holiday lets, regardless of size or price. Charges could be set as a flat fee per night or as a percentage of the accommodation cost. Mr. Robertson, who speaks on tourism-related matters for the Conservatives in Parliament, is against the proposed tourism tax because, he says, it will heap more cost and pressure on the tourism and hospitality sectors, which are already among the most heavily taxed in Europe. He says that coastal communities which rely on a strong visitor economy like the island would be hit hardest. Mr. Robertson said, "Overnight visitors play an important role in the Isle of Wight's economy, accounting for 38% of total economic activity and supporting thousands of local jobs and businesses. We already have expensive ferry costs. We do not need more tax-raising powers by the government." The tourism tax has the potential to suppress visitor demand and place an additional burden on our hospitality industry at a time when many local businesses are seeing their business rates go up. Mr. Robertson has called for local residents, businesses and stakeholders to ensure their views are clearly represented in the consultation process. The consultation on the overnight visitor levy is open until the 18th of February 2026 and is available online via the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government Consultation Portal, Overnight Visitor Levy Consultation, Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, Citizen Space.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Town Council agrees precept rise to fund youth services, toilet access and community projects. Sandown Town Council has unanimously agreed to increase its 2026-2027 precept to £263.97 for a Band D property, up £23.50 a year or 45 pence a week to support local services, youth provision and infrastructure improvements. In a statement to residents following last night's Monday full council meeting, Mayor Alex Lightfoot said councils are under pressure from rising costs and funding cuts and must balance precept increases with delivering essential services. The budget includes ongoing support for youth services following the recent opening of Link Youth Centre at the Old Town Hall and new sports facilities at Sandham Gardens. The 2G football pitch there is now in soft launch ahead of full opening in February. Consultation will begin around Easter for a revamped and expanded skate park. The council has also committed more funding for organised youth activities, outreach and partnerships. Public toilets will be free to use throughout 2026 following successful trials last summer, with a review planned ahead of the 2027 budget. Other new initiatives include a match funding scheme for the proposed Community Benefit Society, a new round of town murals after positive feedback on the Mary Ellis mural, £2,500 for summer seafront events and performances. The council will appoint a fundraiser to develop the International School of Rewilding project and a community resilience bid writer to help secure external grants. Community groups receiving continued support include Breakfast in the Bay, Christchurch Warm Space, Greentown Volunteers, Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat, and the Sandown Carnival Association, which has received a funding boost amid uncertainty over its current base. Core services will continue, including beach wheelchairs, lifeguards, changing places, marker buoys, extra summer bins, high street hanging baskets and event support. The council also plans to part fund a school crossing patrol on Broadway following a community petition, and will hold discussions with the school and Police and Crime Commissioner. Partnership work with the Isle of Wight Council includes funding for planning enforcement, an environment officer, and continuation of the Bay Regeneration Officer role. The council has also agreed to part fund a new community safety officer subject to wider town council involvement.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight climate plan could be tweaked with urgent poverty reduction priorities. Reducing fuel and food poverty and improving the population's well-being are the urgent priorities due to be considered in a tweak to a major Isle of Wight climate plan. The Environment and Community Protection Committee, ECPC, will decide whether to approve the Environmental Improvement and Climate Adaptation Strategy 2021 to 2040 review and refresh 2025 at its Thursday evening meeting, January the 29th. County Hall's Climate and Environment Strategy 2021 to 2040 sets out the Council's aims and targets to reach net carbon zero in its own operations and as an island by 2030 and 2040 respectively. The phrase net zero refers to cutting carbon emissions to a small amount or residual emissions which can be absorbed and durably stored by nature and other carbon dioxide removal measures, leaving zero in the atmosphere, according to the United Nations. Both Isle of Wight communities and the island's local authority have made significant achievements towards the original strategy's goals, with an overall 27% island-wide carbon reduction and 37% within council activities, County Hall has said. Introducing the review and refresh paper, Councillor Karen Lucioni, ECPC Chair, said, "The global impact of our changing climate requires careful thought and strategies to ensure that we can, as a community and as a local authority, make changes that will have a positive impact on reducing harmful consequences, continually improving the environment in which we live. This document and the updated action plan attached is creating a sustainable future for our island, and together with other strategies and plans in existence and those being developed, will support our valuable yet fragile environment and our status as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. The 2025 strategy Refresh reorders the Council's environment and climate response around 3 urgent and interconnected priorities: reducing fuel poverty, lowering food poverty, and improving population well-being. It says County Hall's focus is shifting from abstract carbon targets to practical, place-based solutions, reducing fossil fuel dependency, enhancing local food systems, and building resilience to climate effects. Action areas listed include improving energy efficiency to lower bills and reduce cold-related illness, supporting community food growing and redistribution to address hunger and promote sustainable diets, and investing in nature-based solutions which deliver cleaner air, flood protection, biodiversity, and mental health benefits. The paper refers to steps specifically relating to council operations, such as transitioning council buildings to low-carbon heating and renewable electricity, electrifying the council fleet and improving building fabric to reduce energy demand and overheating risk. Those connected to island-wide efforts include supporting community-led renewable energy projects, as well as the promotion of active travel and low-carbon transport options. Climate adaptation is also mentioned as central to the Council's approach. As the island faces warmer summers, wetter winters, and increased coastal risk, we must prepare our infrastructure, homes, and services to withstand and thrive under changing conditions, the document says. This includes cooling homes, protecting coastlines, restoring ecosystems, and ensuring access to clean water and healthy food. ECPC will meet at County Hall at 5 p.m. on Thursday, January the 29th.
Oh, good morning. Today, Valerie Rutherford-Jackson is reading for you. Half of jobs are safe at Turbine Factory following a £20 million grant, by Liam Chorley. Half of at-risk jobs at Vestas have been saved thanks to government intervention. A new £20 million deal will see the site, which has been on the island for more than 20 years, repurposed, scaling up production and strengthening the UK's clean energy supply chain. As previously reported, 600 workers at Vestas Newport site faced losing their jobs after the company announced it would no longer be manufacturing offshore wind turbine blades. Vestas said constraints at the site meant it was not suitable for the next generation of offshore blades, and the demand for the product was coming to an end. On Wednesday, the government confirmed a £20 million grant, saving over 300 jobs at the Vestas factory. With the future of the factory uncertain back in 2024, Energy Secretary El Miliband intervened with an agreement in principle for the factory to switch its operations to become the country's only onshore wind blade manufacturing site. This action was made possible through the government's lifting of the onshore wind ban, revitalising an industry that had been stagnant for almost a decade. The grant funding delivers on that agreement, though the deal sustains only around half the original workforce. Climate Minister Katie White said it was a no-brainer to save the Vestas factory on the Isle of Wight and create the country's only dedicated onshore wind blade facility. Onshore wind is one of our cheapest and fastest technologies to build. It supports thousands of skilled jobs and it delivers clean energy directly to the communities that host it. While our thoughts are with those who have lost their jobs, by safeguarding over 300 roles, we are protecting one of the Isle of Wight's largest employers and giving Britain the ability to produce the homegrown clean power we need to bring the bills down for good.
This is Alex Cooper from the Isle of Wight County Press reading Talking News today. Further arrests in Jayler Jean probe by Oliver Dyer. 2 people suspected of murdering a 1-year-old girl have been further arrested on suspicion of 2 more offences. The 31-year-old man and a 27-year-old woman, both from Newport, were previously detained following the death of Jayler Jean McLaren. They were subsequently released on conditional bail until February 13th, while further inquiries continued. Both people remain under investigation for murder and have, as of Tuesday, both been further arrested on suspicion of 2 more offences. They are causing or allowing the death of a child and causing assault, ill treatment, neglect, or abandonment of a child to cause unnecessary suffering or injury. Detective Chief Inspector Gemma Hunter said, "We understand that cases such as this are incredibly concerning and upsetting. However, we kindly ask that you do not speculate on this case, as it could potentially impact any future court proceedings. We will provide further updates on this investigation where appropriate." Jayler Jean died at Southampton General Hospital on August the 3rd last year. Police were called to a property at Dairy Crest Drive, Newport, on the 1st of August, where the 17-month-old was found to be unresponsive. Following Jayler Jean's death, 2 people were initially arrested on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm with intent. On August the 7th, Jayler Jean's name was publicly disclosed for the first time, and her mother, Shay McLaren, paid tribute, telling the county press, "Mummy and Daddy and Nanny will always love you. Fly high, Princess." A vigil was held on August the 8th at Church Lytton, Newport. Jayler Jean's mum, Shay, and dad, Jay McLaren, attended, as well as her paternal grandmother, Leslie Chiverton. As many as 70 people paid tribute to Jayler Jean, leaving flowers, balloons, teddies, and photos under a tree. 4 days later, police confirmed the 2 people detained had been rearrested on suspicion of murder and were bailed. On August the 14th, an inquest was opened at the Isle of Wight Coroner's Court. Jayler Jean's cause of death was given as a severe head injury. As of Tuesday, and upon being further arrested, police confirmed the 2 people had been taken into police custody. The investigation continues.
A route turns one way for a long time. A main thoroughfare turns one way from Monday, cutting access towards Ryde for over 3 months. Major work is taking place on Eleanor's Grove, Fishbourne. Southern Water is replacing 500 metres of ageing water mains and connections. During the works, Eleanor's Grove becomes one way. Drivers coming from Ryde and travelling towards Wootton can still use the road, but there will be no access towards Ryde. This means ferry traffic coming from Whitelinks Fishbourne Terminal will have to turn right when coming out of Fishbourne Lane. Buses and emergency vehicles will still be able to use Eleanor's Grove as normal via manual traffic lights. Ferry traffic trying to get to Ryde is being diverted via Bridlesford Road, the Downs Road and Ashy Road. For HGVs, it will take even longer. Drivers will have to go via Bridlesford Road through Arreton and Sandown. New Road Brading is also due to close during this time, meaning HGVs may have to divert via Bembridge. The official advice is not to use the Firestone Copse Road as an alternative. The road is not an approved diversion route. Southern Water, in partnership with Clancy, said this ensures the safety of all road users and helps prevent accidents or congestion on unsuitable roads. The roadworks run to late April.
Driver hurt after car collides with bridge. A man was seriously injured in a crash on a railway bridge last Saturday. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary was alerted to reports of a single vehicle collision on Rowborough Lane between Brading and Ryde shortly after 6:20 p.m. At the scene, officers found that a Saab had collided with Rowborough Bridge just past the junction with B Pursuit and Carpenters Road leading towards St Helens. The car suffered significant front-end damage, ripping off the front bumper and deploying all airbags. The vehicle came to rest on the railway bridge itself, blocking the road until recovery teams cleared the scene later in the evening. A police spokesperson confirmed that the Saab driver, a man in his 30s, suffered serious injuries and was taken to hospital.
The second wave of major acts for the Islands Festival by Zach Saunders. The Isle of Wight Festival has unveiled a second wave of artists set to appear at the 2026 event at Sea Close Park in Newport. Organisers have added a mix of established chart toppers, indie favourites and rising stars to an already high-profile bill. Northern Irish Undie Band, Two Door Cinema Club, dance music hitmaker Joel Corry, former Little Mix star Perry and rock veterans Ash are among the latest names confirmed for the festival, which returns from June the 18th to the 21st. They join previously announced headliners Lewis Capaldi and Calvin Harris and The Cure, as well as acts including Teddy Swims, Wet Leg, Tom Grenham, The Last Dinner Party, The Cooks and David Gray. Two Door Cinema Club are set to return to the island following a successful year of global touring. Best known for tracks such as What You Know and I Can Talk, the band has long been a popular live draw at UK festivals. Fellow Northern Irish group Ash will also make an appearance, bringing more than 3 decades of rock anthems, including Girl from Mars and Shining Light. DJ and producer Joel Corry, a multi-Brit award nominee, will bring a dance-focused set to the festival, featuring hits such as Head and Heart and Out Out. He will be joined by Hot Dub Time Machine, whose high-energy time-travelling DJ shows have become a festival favourite. Pop singer Perry will make her solo Isle of Wight Festival debut following the launch of her post-Little Mix career, while rising British talent Alessi Rose and Doncaster-born singer-songwriter Freddie Helken are also newly confirmed. The latest announcement also includes indie stalwarts Maximo Park, currently celebrating the 20th anniversary of their debut album, A Certain Trigger, and fast-rising duo Good Neighbours, who broke through with the multi-platinum single Home. Indie newcomers The K's, whose recent album Pretty on the internet reached #1, and Scottish post-punk band The Twilight Sad further strengthened the guitar-led side of the lineup. They are joined by disco-influenced pop artist Rose Gray, LA-based duo Viola, and Nirvana tribute Alavana, known for their high-energy festival performances.
Peacocks line up in orderly fashion outside pub. Visiting peacocks at popular pub The Hare and Hounds formed an orderly line as if waiting to be served. Peacocks are well-documented regulars at the pub on Down End Road on the outskirts of Newport, often making themselves at home in the garden and sometimes inside the premises. However, staff captured something of a rarity when they spotted 8 peacocks sitting on wooden railings outside the pub in a very precise, orderly line. Undeterred by the rain, the peacocks decided to perch on the railings. Peacocks are such frequent visitors at the Hare and Hounds, staff have erected peacock crossing signs to warn motorists of their feathered friends who may be on the busy junction. The birds have also been captured at the bus stop serving the junction, prompting amusement for passing islanders and on social media.
Fears on health in children. Concerns are growing about drug and alcohol use among island children, with more entering treatment and increased school exclusions. An investigation by the BBC Shared Data Unit has revealed that 45 under-18s on the island were in drug and alcohol treatment during 24 to 25, up from 40 the previous year. While the overall number remains relatively small, the rise reflects a wider national trend, with a 13% increase in children entering treatment across England over the same period. Around half of the young people in treatment on the island were aged 15 or under, including 5 children under the age of 14. Nationally, the proportion of under 14s receiving treatment is now at a record high, which experts say points to both earlier drug use and improved access to support services. Cannabis was the main substance bringing island children into treatment, with 35 under 16s reporting it as a problem drug, while smaller numbers also cited alcohol and nicotine. During the 23-24 academic year, island schools issued 10 permanent exclusions and 110 suspensions specifically related to drugs and alcohol. Those 10 exclusions accounted for 31% of all permanent exclusions on the island, 10 out of 32, one of the highest proportions recorded in England. Drug and alcohol issues were behind just over 4% of suspensions, with 110 out of 2,604 linked to substance misuse. All of the exclusions and suspensions were issued by island secondary schools. No drug and alcohol-related exclusions or suspensions were recorded in primary or special schools. Nationally, the rise in young people needing treatment has been linked to easier access to drugs through social media, changing drug trends, and worsening mental health among children. Nearly half of children starting drug and alcohol treatment in England last year reported having a mental health need, and most said they first began using drugs before the age of 15. The BBC data also described what experts have called a postcode lottery in access to specialist help for children with substance misuse problems. There are currently no state-run residential rehabilitation units for under-18s anywhere in the UK.
20-mile diversion as road set to close. A main route through Brading will shut from Monday, February 2nd, despite backlash from residents and drivers. The closure of New Road will coincide with Southern Waterworks on Eleanor's Grove, Fishbourne. It will mean heavy goods vehicle drivers are now facing a 20-mile diversion to get to Ryde from Whitelink's Fishbourne terminal. Until Friday, February 27th, New Road will close to traffic between Marshcombe Chute and Racks Road. Traffic lights will be installed between Station Gardens and High Street so vehicles can go through some of the closure. Meanwhile, Eleanor's Grove turns one way on Monday until late April. While cars can travel via Bridleswood Road, the Downs Road and Ashley Road to get to Ryde from Fishbourne, HGVs will have to go via Wootton, Arroton, Apps Heath, Lake, Sandown, Yarbridge, Bembridge and St Helens to reach Ryde. Island Roads said that while it recognises the inconvenience for drivers, the works on New Road are urgently needed. Other diversion routes, including the Mall, were not considered safe. Number 2 and 3 buses will divert through St Helens and Bembridge.
Rescue operation after person is stuck on the cliffs. A person stuck on the cliffs near Bonchurch landslide was winched to safety on Wednesday afternoon. HM Coast Guard responded to reports of a person stuck on cliffs at Dunnose, with the alarm raised at 3:44 p.m. The person was rescued to safety by helicopter and was assessed on the scene with no further medical treatment required. A Maritime and Coast Guard agency spokesman said the rescue team was operating from a footpath close to the site of a major landslide in Bonchurch in December 23, gathering afterwards on Bonchurch Chute for a debrief. Police were also made aware of the incident. A spokesperson for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary said it appears this was subsequently resolved by the Coast Guard prior to any police deployment.
Rare Opportunity to Restore Former Stables by Zach Saunders. Plans have been submitted to carry out major restoration work to the Grade 2 listed former royal stables at Osborne House. The large stable block was designed in the late 1850s by Prince Albert as part of Queen Victoria's private seaside estate. It was built to serve the royal household after the original stables were deemed inadequate. Today, the building forms part of the Osborne Stables Block Business Park off York Avenue in East Cowes. Despite its commercial use, it remains at Grade 2 listing and sits within the park and garden that surrounds Osborne House. Over the years, the building has played several different roles, including part of Osborne's Royal Naval College and as the head office of Saunders Road during World War II. The Crown Estate, advised by Savills, has applied for full planning permission and listed building consent to complete the works. The aim is to secure the building's long-term future while bringing it closer to its original Victorian appearance. Central to the plans is the removal of failing mid-20th century metal roof trusses and asbestos sheet covering on part of the north and west wings. These would be replaced with new timber roof structures in Welsh slate, matching the rest of the building. Other proposed changes include reinstating the original gable and decorative string course on the west wing and replacing a later gable on the north wing with a hipped roof. Blocked up openings on the south side of the north wing would be reopened and fitted with new timber doors based on historic designs. The plans also seek to recreate the covered veranda that once ran around the court. A new black-painted steel escape staircase is also proposed on the east wing. Within the courtyard itself, modern concrete around the edges would be removed to reveal the original brick paving and stone curbs. Members of the public can view the full plans and supporting documents on the Isle of Wight Council's online planning portal using reference 26-00047-FUL. The public consultation period runs until February the 20th.
A major road closure after car flips onto its roof. A car flipped onto its roof on a main route through Lake yesterday, Wednesday. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service and the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service were all called to Sandown Road. Police were alerted at 12:06 p.m. The collision involved one car at the junction with Newport Road. The road was shut between Cemetery Road and the junction with Newport Road while the casualty was seen to and the vehicle was recovered. 3 fire engines, police and an ambulance and paramedics attended the scene. Southern Vectis buses were forced to divert. An eyewitness told the county press a casualty was taken out of the car by firefighters and transferred to a stretcher. Police confirm no injuries were reported. Have you got a story for the Isle of Wight County Press? Contact the team in Newport via email at editor@isleofwight.co.uk. iwcp.co.uk or call 01983 259 003. Why not sign up for our breaking news emails? Be the first to hear the news sent direct to your phone.
Prime Minister will probably give Isle of Wight away, Tory leader quips, by Oliver Dyer. The Conservative leader joked Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer will probably give the Isle of Wight away on his trip to China. Kemi Badenoch said that she is worried about what the Labour leader plans to do in the country. She said, "He looks like he gives way every time things get difficult, and that is the difference between Keir Starmer and myself." She told journalists this after making a speech on Wednesday morning. She said, "You asked, would I be going to China? No, not now, because I don't think that this is the time to do that. We need to be talking to those other countries who are worried about the threat China is posing to them. We should be talking more to those countries who are aligned with our interests, not the country that is doing everything it can to undermine our economy." I think that this is what the Prime Minister should be talking about, and he needs to show strength, not approving a super embassy, which many people think is going to become a spy hub. She added, "He's probably going to give the Isle of Wight away before he comes back. Let's have an actual foreign policy, one that is rooted in realism and focusing on Britain's national interests." Sir Keir Starmer arrived in China on the first visit by a British Prime Minister in 8 years. A delegation of almost 60 representatives of British businesses and cultural institutions is accompanying the Prime Minister as he continues his efforts to build bridges with Beijing. But concerns over the risk China poses to national security and Xi Jinping's record on human rights mean Sir Keir's visit is politically sensitive. Speaking to reporters on the flight to Beijing, the Prime Minister said, "The evidence there are opportunities is the fact that we've got so many CEOs with us on this flight, that we've got 60 coming out to explore those opportunities." Sir Keir added that this reflects that back at home in terms of the benefit that it brings back to the United Kingdom.
Union Refusal, Unbelievable and Uncaring by Rufus Pickles. Refusing Unite Trade Union recognition for the RNLI staff at East Cowes Inshore Lifeboat Centre, the ILC, has been condemned as unbelievable, uncaring and totally out of step with the charity's ethos. Carl Love, East Cowes Independent County Councillor, has said the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, the RNLI, management is unwilling to do the decent thing of throwing staff a lifeline of support amid controversial plans to close the Clarence Road site. The RNLI is looking to move its inshore lifeboat production facility from East Cowes to its manufacturing site in Poole from the end of 2027, putting island jobs at risk. Unite claims the charity has refused to formally recognise the union in talks. The row has led Unite to begin legal action through the Central Arbitration Committee. An RNLI spokesman said that while the charity is rejecting Unite's request, it is listening and responding. Councillor Love said, "The RNLI workforce is known for its dedication, compassion, care of life and empathy towards those in peril on the sea. But it appears the same values are not afforded by the RNLI executive managers to their own workforce, who call on a different kind of lifeboat, Unite, for help in receiving proper highly skilled representation. After 200 years of lifeboat building in East Cowes and massive dedication, the workforce deserves to be respected, and this doesn't look like respect. It looks like active prevention of a vital service to help others through this difficult time. Jamie Major, Unite Regional Coordinating Officer, previously said, Unite has no choice but to begin the formal legal process to ensure our members have proper representation and leverage over what happens to their jobs, pay and conditions. The RNLI spokesman said the RNLI have carefully considered the request from Unite. In doing so, the charity took into account its existing support forum for staff, which is involved and helping staff from the ILC. An additional 18-strong specific ILC staff forum has been created, who have recognition independently. And while we are rejecting the request from Unite, the RNLI staff from the ILC who are members can be accompanied by Unite at any forthcoming individual meetings.
Medicine theft from Boots. 2 men have been arrested following a burglary at a Boots pharmacy last Sunday. Police were alerted to reports of a break-in at Boots on Sandown High Street shortly before 4 a.m. They confirmed that entry had been forced into the premises and medicine stolen. A 34-year-old man from Southampton and a 31-year-old man from Sandown have been arrested on suspicion of burglary. Both men were taken into custody.
Police are called out on attempted night burglary. Police were called to reports of an attempted burglary at a property in the Pan area of Newport last Saturday night. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary confirmed officers were alerted shortly after 10:30 p.m. following concerns that a property was being targeted. The incident is understood to have taken place on the Ash Road. Residents reported a visible police presence at the scene after damage was called to a ground floor window at the address. Images shared online show shattered glass around the window, but police have confirmed that no entry was gained to the property. No arrests have been made in connection with the incident.
Jail time for sex predator. A dangerous sexual predator from the island who preyed on a lone teenage girl, attacking her as she waited for a train, has been jailed. Barnaby Money, 46, of East Hill Road Ryde, appeared at Portsmouth Crown Court on Thursday, January the 15th. He previously pleaded guilty to sexual assault. Court heard how at around 6:20 on February the 25th, 2025, Money approached a 17-year-old who waited for her train at Cosham train station. He sat on the same bench as her and proceeded to ask her questions about the trains. Though the teenage girl attempted to ignore him, he moved closer to her and asked if she wanted to go on a walk with him and perform a sexual act on him. Moments later, he attempted to kiss her hand before sexually assaulting her. He stayed on the bench next to the victim and threatened to rape her, court heard. A member of the public at the station witnessed the attack and called the police. Officers from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary were first to arrive at the station, and the witness pointed out Money, who was still sat next to the girl. He was immediately arrested and taken into custody for questioning. Following an investigation led by the British Transport Police, Money admitted to the attack. At court, Money was sentenced to 1 year in prison. He was also ordered to sign the Sex Offenders Register for 10 years and is banned from working with children. British Transport Police Detective Constable Phil James said, "Money is a dangerous sexual predator who preyed on a lone teenage girl and attacked her as she waited for a train. His behaviour was totally unacceptable and has caused the young woman severe trauma. I commend her bravery in supporting our investigation, as well as the bystander who quickly called the police so Money could be arrested at the scene. Thanks to them, Money is now behind bars and no longer a danger to women. If you experience or witness a sexual offence on board a train or at a station, you are urged to report it to the British Transport Police by texting 61016.
Rejection on bid for town flats. A bid to convert vacant office space in the centre of the island's county town into 6 flats has been rejected by the Isle of Wight Council. The IPM SIP administration sought to turn 39 to 40 Quay Street in Newport into 4 one-bedroom apartments and 2 with 2 bedrooms across 3 floors. The applicant's agent, Planning and Development Hub, previously said the conversion of redundant office space leads to increased vitality to the town centre, bringing people back into the town to live. But in a decision reported on application 25-01010-FUL, planners said the proposal would result in the loss of historic fabric and harm the special architectural and historic interest of the Grade 2 listed building. It said insufficient information has been provided on potential external alterations that may be required for the proposed conversion, such as for ventilation that may impact on the Newport conservation area and setting of listed buildings. The proposal would fail to provide a financial contribution towards affordable housing on the island.
What's next for Isle of Wight bin collections and its waste services by Oliver Dyer. Active talks are continuing over the long-term future of waste collection and management services on the island, the council has said, as it looks to minimise disruption to islanders. It comes after it was announced that current provider Thalia's 25-year public-private partnership is being cut short from April the 1st. To ensure the smooth running of waste and recycling services, French firm Veolia has been awarded a 3-month contract to provide consultancy. Longer-term plans have yet to be shored up. So what will happen in the long term? Active discussions are ongoing between the council and Veolia for the French multinational firm to take on household waste and recycling collections going forward. If a deal is agreed as expected, it would last for 2 years and would also see the company look after residual waste treatment and the management of the island's household waste recycling centres. During that 2-year period, the council will tender for a longer-term provider. With 18 integrated waste management contracts with local authorities across the UK, the council said Veolia has decades of experience in providing high-quality municipal recycling and waste services, as well as managing the nearby Hampshire integrated waste management contract. How much will it cost the council? Despite requests from the county press, the council has said it is currently unable to comment on specific financial details for the 2-year deal. A spokesperson said the values and costs involved in any proposed deal at this stage are commercially confidential. When Amy, later renamed Thalia, was awarded the contract in 2015, the 25-year partnership was valued at approximately £225 million. The contract delivered a fully integrated waste management system covering curbside and commercial collections, recycling centres, reuse initiatives and specialist treatment facilities. What does it mean for services such as bin collections? The council has sought to reassure residents that recycling and waste services will continue as normal, while Thalia has promised a smooth transition. They said, working clarity, the priority for all parties is to ensure as little disruption as possible for residents and businesses on the island, a council statement said.
Heritage, Memories of a Former Brewery by Alan Stroud. Mike Milledge left school in 1951 and went to work for Mew Langton's Brewery in their order office in Crocker Street. In 2010, I recorded some of Mike's memories of those days. Mike, who died in 2023, aged 88, told me, initially when I went there, We had a beer break in the morning and a tea break in the afternoon. I wasn't old enough to start with, so I had to have lemonade, but the older ones would have a tankard of beer at 10 o'clock, and some would go and get a second one. We had a cupboard with a 9-gallon cask in, and if the cask got empty, you went down in the cellars and got another one. Well, the new drink laws came in the 60s, and they said you couldn't drink and drive. So everyone in the company had an allowance of 4 dozen cans of beer a month. The bosses could have as much as they liked. The dray men used to have plenty of pints as they went around delivering to the pubs. One of the drivers said to me, "Oh, we probably have 12 pints a day." I never knew it could cause an accident. Mind you, there wasn't the traffic then. Of course, in the horse-drawn days, the horse would know its way back. I remember the last horse-drawn one, Tom, was the last horse in about 1948. I remember when I was at the grammar school in the lower St. James Street, looking out of the window and see old Albert Richards with the horse delivering to the Freemasons on the corner. We used to lean out and shout at him, and he used to wave his whip at us. Tom went out to Ningwood Retirement Home for horses. Muse used to send a bushel of brewer's grains out for him. I ended up in the order office in the Crocker Street, and he had to take the pub orders up to Joe Mew every morning. He used to go through them all, one after the other, and he'd tap one of the entries and say, "He hasn't had any mild ale for 2 weeks." He had a memory like an elephant. Muse would buy the wines and spirits in without paying duty. You only paid duty when you actually withdrew it for sale from our bonded warehouse, which was under customs control.
There was a dual lock on it. No one could get in there if the customs man wasn't there. We had a key, and the customs officer at Newport had a key, and we would both go down to the bonded warehouse and unlock the door together. In the bonded store, there were hogsheads of port, sherry, whiskey and brandy. A hogshead is about 50 gallons. We'd withdraw 1 hogshead usually. We would then bottle it and put our own label on it. Sometimes the customs officer would come in with his dipstick and dip the hogshead occasionally to check, because you lose a certain amount through evaporation. In the 1960 flood, I went down and spent some time getting tobacco out of the tobacco store. The building at the bottom of Honey Hill, where the side came out, that was the old mineral water factory, and above that, Old St. Cross Mill, was the tobacco store. The flood was on a Saturday morning. I walked down Carisbrooke Road, which was just about underwater, to go to the brewery, and it was a real flood. Wrapped around the filler unit of the mineral water factory was a sofa from Kent's furniture store that had come down the river. We lost a lot of barrels of beer. They were all washed out into the Solent. There were bottles and litters everywhere. You couldn't sell it because it had been contaminated. Brickwood's brewery at Portsmouth did some brewing for us a week or 2, but we were back up and running very quickly. Strong's of Romsey bought Muse, and then Whitbreads bought them, and Whitbreads decided to stop brewing at Newport and bring all the stock from the mainland. The beer arrived at East Cowes, and one of our lorries went to pick it up.
Islanders warned over fake scam diet adverts by Sally Ash. She's with the Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership. Fake diet adverts are everywhere, especially on social media and websites. These scams are designed to mislead people who are often looking for a quick, affordable way to lose weight or improve their health. They frequently use bold claims such as "lose a stone in a week" or "miracle weight loss solution." Scam diet adverts often misuse before and after photos, or more frequently, AI created fake videos, fake customer reviews, and the names or images of celebrities, doctors, or health organisations without permission. Some copy the branding of trusted outlets to make the advert look genuine or lead you to believe you are purchasing from a reputable trader. In reality, these products are usually ineffective, unregulated, or potentially dangerous. Consumers may be signed up to expensive free trial subscriptions with hidden recurring payments that are difficult to cancel. Personal and payment details entered on fake websites can be stolen and used for further fraud. There are also health risks. Unverified diet pills, teas, or supplements may contain harmful ingredients or interact with prescribed medication. No legitimate product can guarantee rapid or effortless weight loss, and safe weight management takes time, balanced nutrition, and professional guidance. Here are some useful tips on how to protect yourself. Be skeptical of dramatic claims. Avoid clicking on sponsored links from unknown sellers. Never rush into a purchase. Check information through trusted medical sources and speak to a healthcare professional before starting any diet product.
When I think of the Isle of Wight, I picture chalk cliffs, red squirrels, and the slow rhythm of ferries coming and going across the sea. It's a place shaped by tides and tradition, where generations have built their lives around skilled work and close-knit communities. For more than 20 years, one of those anchors has been Vestas' offshore wind blade factory in Newport. When news broke over a year ago that the site could close, this government quickly recognised hundreds of livelihoods were at risk. Hard-working families faced uncertainty, and an island employer many thought could be lost for good. That is why we stepped in and reached an agreement with Vestas to save the factory. And after a year of close collaboration, including investment from Vestas into the plant, we can now confirm that we are providing a £20 million grant to secure the future of the Vestas site and safeguard over 300 jobs. Thanks to this intervention, workers at Newport can continue building a future producing clean, homegrown power. But while we celebrate this success, our thoughts remain with those affected by redundancies. This mission-led decision is a clear intervention with strict conditions: protect jobs, repurpose the factory, and build a future-facing plan for growth. The result is something genuinely new. The Isle of Wight is now home to the country's only dedicated onshore wind blade manufacturing facility. This cements the island as a major driver of economic growth, manufacturing, and skilled jobs of the future. It also puts the Isle of Wight firmly as a key pillar of our industrial strategy, building the turbines this country needs to get energy bills down for good. This matters because the world has changed. Demand for the specific smaller offshore blades once produced in Newport has fallen, and the next generation of offshore turbines has simply grown too large for the site to handle. Without action, closure was the likely outcome. Now, the factory has been retooled to unleash the potential of Britain's onshore wind sector. One of the fastest and cheapest ways to generate clean power in Britain. Onshore wind is sometimes talked about in abstract terms, megawatts, the planning system, and targets, but here on the Isle of Wight, it means something very concrete. It means engineers, technicians, and apprentices clocking in each morning. It means growth for local businesses. It means skills passed from one generation to the next. It also means energy security. Every blade manufactured in Newport helps reduce our reliance on volatile fossil fuel markets and strengthens Britain's ability to take back control of our energy and produce clean, homegrown power.
The letters. Seeking Friend by Janet Cadet from Ryde. I have tried a few avenues to contact Avril Marks, who was a colleague and friend of my late husband Bernie. They used to exchange Christmas cards, and unfortunately I have been unable to contact her and send her some of Burns' photos from when they worked together at a care home, Plene Dean, in Shanklin. I did too good a job when sorting out his mountain of effects, and I mislaid Avril's address. I am hoping that if she sees this, she can contact me on 01983 812 403.
Politicians' sincerity is just for show, from R. Matthews of Newport. Dear Editor, the recent run of Conservative MPs leaving for reform has been talked about as if it's some huge political landslide. It may be, but it also proves something most of us already suspect. Many politicians are not as sincere as they make out. I'm not only talking about those who have switched sides, although they've made the news. I'm also thinking about the people they've left behind. One day, someone is good enough to be a member of the shadow cabinet, and the next he's suddenly toxic and only motivated by ambition and self-interest. Another MP, the minute she left, was described as having mental health problems, simply because she no longer wanted to share the same political label. And as for that accidental press release, I doubt many people believe it was a genuine mistake. They just didn't expect such a bad reaction, which simply shows how out of touch they are with ordinary people. This isn't limited to one party. They all act the same in these circumstances. The Conservatives are just the latest example because they have lost so many MPs recently. Parties demand loyalty, yet offer none in return, and the personal attacks start as soon as someone steps out of line. All of this shows how false our political party system really is. The speed at which praise turns into criticism makes me doubt that much of what our politicians say is honest. More of it is just for show. If they spent less time attacking each other and put more effort into dealing with the issues that matter to the rest of us, perhaps people would trust them a bit more.
Time to Ensure No Veteran is Left Behind by Hans Bromwich of Cowes. Dear Editor, the United States of America is the only NATO member to have enacted Article 5, the cornerstone of the organisation, which says that an armed attack on one member is considered an attack on all. After 9/11, all NATO countries rallied round and supported the US in its fight against Al-Qaeda. Hundreds of brave British soldiers died, and countless more were left seriously maimed and mentally damaged. So Keir Starmer was right to express outrage at President Trump's comments about our troops. Keir Starmer has now rolled back on the £3.4 billion Chagos Islands deal, which would have seen British taxpayers paying Mauritius a staggering £165 million for each of the first 3 years to lease back Diego Garcia. Since this money will no longer be paid, and given Keir Starmer's outrage at President Trump's comments, perhaps it's time for our government to ensure none of our servicemen and women ever find themselves sleeping on the streets. Just a thought.
Consider the whole picture from R. Bonner of Ryde. Dear Editor, we live in dangerous and deeply unsettling times, yet I find myself puzzled by the selective outrage that seems to grip parts of our society. Perhaps someone who protested against what they described as Israel's genocide in Gaza could explain why they have not been demonstrating to condemn the mass killing of Iranian citizens by their own government. The death toll in Iran runs into the tens of thousands, yet the silence from many who claim to champion human rights is deafening. The left believes it holds the monopoly on compassion, that its supporters are uniquely driven by concern for their fellow human beings. If that is so, their lack of protest over the countless innocent lives lost in Iran is truly mystifying. One might even wonder whether their compassion is quite as genuine as they would have us believe. At the same time, those cheering on Donald Trump's so-called beautiful armada as a solution to the turmoil in the Middle East should pause for thought. Wars are easy to start but notoriously difficult to control. When Vladimir Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine, he expected victory within 10 days. Our own government, anticipating a swift resolution, asked the public to host Ukrainian refugees for just 6 months under the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Next month will see the 4th anniversary of the invasion, yet the conflict continues with no clear end in sight. Before we rush to take sides or to demand military intervention, perhaps should we reflect on the real complexity of these crises and on the dangers of selective outrage.
Loyal Staff Left in the Dark by C. Luff of East Cowes. Dear Editor, God's Hill Primary School was running at a loss, so they sold the preschool part of the school to a private company. The staff were not informed until after the deal was done. Some of this was allegedly going on under the radar of school governors. The preschool staff were told they would be okay and given roles in the main school, then told later that actually no, they won't be, and job losses will happen. On January the 30th, that's today, preschool and teaching assistants will find out whether they have a job or not. The staff have been given a drip effect of information. Those involved are stressed about pending dismissals and lack of information. Not professional, respectful or decent to all the loyal staff at the school who are dedicated to the children they care for and nurture.
Hello. Later today, how Britain's blind sailors have achieved a clean sweep in their World Sailing Championships and what this might mean for the sport in future Paralympics. But first, how confident can we be in government plans to reform Disability Confident, the scheme designed to get more disabled people into work? It's a voluntary scheme which companies can sign up to, and they move between 3 levels, all with various commitments that are supposed to encourage employers to think differently about hiring disabled people. But it is by no means the first time British governments have attempted to coax employers into giving disabled people a fair chance. If you're old enough, you may remember these.
The 2-tick scheme, a guaranteed interview scheme, work step, work choice.
Sound good, don't they? And yet, in all that time and with all those schemes, the numbers of visually impaired people in work have barely moved above 1 in 4 people of working age in a job. Well, now the government plans to reform the Disability Confident scheme, introduced by their predecessors in 2016. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Minister for Social Security and Disability, Sir Stephen Timms, about just how they intend to do this. But first, we'll be hoping that the Minister will be listening to people like Totally Blind Human Resources Coordinator Jane Constance. Now, prior to working, she secured 2 degrees, one in law, one in human resources. I asked Jane to share her experiences of going for jobs with organisations she'd checked out in advance were signed up to Disability Confident.
Surprisingly, they've never heard about access to work. I've been telling them there's no worries if I can't use any system that's not accessible. I would have a support worker that would be from Access to Work. And surprisingly, they never heard about access to work and the support that's given by the government. The issue with these companies is that it's just a badge, so they don't necessarily employ the person that's disabled.
How did these interviews make you feel?
Normally, I am a very confident person. I come across really well because everyone tells me that my public speaking skill is really good. But I started having, feeling like low self-esteem because I've studied law for that long, for 4 years, and I studied HR for a year. 5 years of studies for being constantly rejected with no reasons makes you feel that you can't do anything.
Now, of course, often it is a job that only one person is going to get. It might be a strong field. How can you be sure that you've been rejected on grounds of your disability rather than...
Because the questions they asked me during the interviews, they were doubting about my own abilities. They were asking me questions like, how do you read, or how do you prioritize your time because you're blind? Do you always need someone there to support you? So the kind of questions suggested that they didn't know much about blind and visually impaired, and how is it like to employ someone that's visually impaired.
Jane Constance, and in addition to Jane's experiences, we've been hearing from the Disability Business Forum, who tell us that though many employers do take the scheme incredibly seriously, for some it can just be a tick box exercise, and the current validating process doesn't prevent this from happening. The RNIB is also highly sceptical of the effect of the Disability Confident scheme as it's currently operating. Roisin Jacklin is their lead on policy.
We hear from many blind and partially sighted people that despite being employed or interviewed by a Disability Confident, they're still facing very significant barriers. And I think at the moment it's still possible for an employer to reach the highest level of the scheme without actually having employed a disabled person. And some research that really stood out to me was from the University of Sheffield. And it found that areas in Britain with large number of employees signed up to the scheme actually were hiring fewer disabled people than areas with lower numbers of employers signed up to Disability Confident. And when we're talking to blind and partially sighted people, it's a real mix. We are hearing from some people who've had a really positive experience with a Disability Confident employer, but across the board, that's not always the case. And there's still lots of people who are facing issues. Someone told me, I've got a quote here, one big problem was IT systems routinely being designed with no consideration of accessibility. Eventually, I was forced to leave because of this, yet they still claim to be Disability Confident.
But of course, the government has said it does want to reform this scheme, and therefore they're showing a willingness to do something about it. What do you think they need to do that is not part of the scheme at the moment?
There could be thresholds and requirements that employers need to meet of the percentage of their workforce that has a disability. At the moment, access to work is the number one employment issue we're hearing from blind and partially sighted people. And we're growing increasingly concerned when people are renewing that support that it's being significantly cut. And in some circumstances, it's just meaning that people can't stay in the workforce and employers can't support people. So we really need to make sure that that support is protected.
Roisin Jacklin of the RNIB. So, time to bring in Disability Minister Sir Stephen Timms, who's been listening to that. Minister, thanks for coming on. It isn't just dissatisfied blind work seekers, unhappy because they haven't been given a job they thought they deserved, or just charities like the RNIB. So Charlie Mayfield, commissioned by the government to produce the report Keep Britain Working, said Disability Confident lacked teeth. So what are you planning to give them some teeth?
So the key change that we are making is that companies can only stay at level 1 of Disability Confident for 2 years. It used to be 3, but in addition to that, they won't be able to renew their membership of the scheme at level 1. To stay on, they'll need to move to level 2. So at the end of the 2-year point of having been on the entry level 1 for 2 years, they'll need to decide either to progress up to level 2, which is more demanding, or to leave the scheme. I think that's going to be quite a significant change, which will start to address the lack of robustness that there's been in the past.
But if it is indeed true that a lot of people at the moment are on the scheme and don't have to even have somebody who's disabled working for them, or may have very small numbers, isn't it really time to give members of Disability Confident targets, real targets, i.e. an agreed percentage of employees with a disability, which if they fall below will see them, removed from the scheme? Don't you need some legislative heft, not just, hopeful nudging?
Well, Disability Confident is a voluntary scheme and it's distinctive in that way. Let's see how we get on with the change that we are making. We're also making changes to ensure that we're listening to the voices of employees in Disability Confident employers throughout the scheme. And we're going to be seeing what the effect of these changes are over the course of this year. And if we need to change them further and refine them, then we'll be glad to do that. And we've been talking
Stephen,
a lot to...
you heard us mention all the schemes that we've had before. People have been trying to do this since the 70s. And of course, we've had lots of legislation, hasn't worked, has it? You don't have to wait to see whether it's working or not.
Well, if you look back at what happened under the Labour government that I was a minister in, there was a steady and substantial fall in the disability employment gap through those years up to 2010. There hasn't been very much of a change since then. We want to get back on that downward track. And I think a reformed disability confidence scheme can help. It's not the whole solution by any means, but I think it can help and it will.
I mean, the suggestion that I just made, that you have targets, the percentages, obviously they could relate to the size of the company. That has worked. I think France tried it. I think it was 6%. Haven't we got to the point where we ought to do that rather than just asking nicely?
We are asking at the moment employers at levels 2 and 3 of the scheme whether they employ disabled people when they apply for or renew their membership. And nearly 2,500 employers that we put that question to so far, fewer than 1% said that they don't employ anybody. So I think we can make genuinely worthwhile progress with a more robust scheme.
Now, Stephen, you and I have talked before about access to work. Roisin raised it as well. The scheme, of course, designed to support disabled people in work. And we also talked about the government's concerns that it's costing too much money. Some people may think that the government's commitment to getting tough with the disability confidence scheme is prompted by the wish to transfer responsibilities borne at the moment by the government to employers. Is there not some truth in that?
No, I remember it's not very long ago we used to talk about access to work as the government's best kept secret. It isn't a secret any longer because we've had a huge surge of applications for it over the last few years and a big increase therefore in spending on it, and unfortunately some delays as well for people waiting for their application to be processed. But we do need to reform access to work. We consulted on reform in the Green Paper last year, and we will be looking further and we'll be bringing forward proposals for reform in due course, which I hope will mean that it will be a kind of less clunky, less bureaucratic process, and one that's able to give people the help that they need more quickly than is the case at the moment. It is an absolutely vital scheme.
Can I ask you, how will you measure success as far as the disability confidence scheme is concerned? Is it still too much about process and not enough about outcomes, which is a phrase you used when talking to your predecessors?
I see it as an important contribution towards removing barriers which too often hold disabled people out of employment at the moment. And I think the acid test, the measure for that, will be the disability employment gap, which I want to see coming down.
But are you really convinced that this will do that, given that this is all voluntary? Surely some of these things that you've suggested, they should be part of law, shouldn't they?
Well, we are making a number of things part of law. For example, we're going to be legislating to require employers with more than 250 employees to publish data on their disability pay gap. So we are making regulatory changes where we need to. But no, I think this voluntary scheme can contribute to removing barriers in the way that we need to. It's certainly not the solution on its own, but I think it can help along with all the other things that we're doing and enable us to make progress which is urgently needed.
Sir Stephen Timms, thank you very much. Well, it's interesting when you move into the area of sport, where success can really be judged by results, that British visually impaired people have consistently done remarkably well over the years, and no more so than in the field of sailing. Their recent performances have been, well, breathtaking. At the recent World Sailing Inclusion Visually Impaired Championships in Oman, the British team secured what amounted to a clean sweep in the 3 visual impairment classes, coming first, second and third in all 3 categories. Well, I've been talking to Lucy Hodges, who's Commodore of GBR Sailing. They organise events and provide training and have a go days for aspiring sailors. And Vicky Sheen, she's also a very experienced sailor, competing in the B1 category for those with little or no sight. I began by asking Lucy about the significance of this latest achievement.
It was a special world championship. It was the first of its kind. Parasailing got taken out of the Paralympics, and we have put in, as of the 15th of December, a bid to go back into the Paralympics. So it was a big test event to prove to the world that we're still out there racing after COVID. We're still on a recovery programme, getting all countries back involved and also spreading the net wider. But for GBR, we've never stopped. And coming back home with 3 golds and a first overall and a third overall was a massive achievement.
And what's the level of participation? I mean, do you know how many blind and partially sighted sailors there are?
There is absolutely loads. And in 2020, I took up a programme called Sail at Home, which is now called Sea Sailing Your Way, because we're now out in the whole of the UK and Ireland, starting a programme to get people sailing in their local clubs, giving education. And we're just about to launch our world programme come the 1st of February, the week of 1st of February, getting countries like India and Germany, giving them all the facilities that the UK has.
Let me bring in Vicky Sheen. You too are an experienced sailor, I think doing it for well over 20 years. What's the big appeal?
I love being out on the water. I either want to be in the water or on the water, but it's that independence. So listening to the sails and the boat and getting the information from the sails and the feel of the boat and the sound of the water around you. So I can helm a boat, I can race a boat, and we have, for fleet racing, we have sighted tacticians on board because there could be up to 8-10 boats out on the water. Or match racing, when there's only visually impaired people on the water, so 3 visually impaired sailors. But the boat is telling me what to do, it's speaking to me.
But you do need to know you're going in the right direction. I mean, what's the technology involved to help you steer correctly?
The match racing, there are audio buoys. So the racing marks that boats go around, those are audio. And obviously, beating, you know that you're on the wind because the sounds and the feel of the boat tells you that. So you could get quite a lot of navigation simply by, is the wind in my face or is the wind at the back of me? Yeah, it tells me if I've just spun 180 degrees. There are audio compasses. So if you're cruising on a yacht, then there are audio compasses that can actually help you navigate when you're going from point A to point B. But that's a bit different from actually racing.
Now, one of the major showcases for sailing used to be the Paralympics, but as we mentioned, it was dropped as a Paralympic sport before the Tokyo Games, which was scheduled in 2020. Then, of course, it was postponed for a year. Why was it dropped, Lucy?
Blind sailing has never been in. We could go into the 2-person boat or 3-person boat. So it was very hard. Because as a 6, 7, 5-pointer, you were going against people with just one arm, no leg. So it's quite different. Our strategy is not capable. It was mainly participation. Sailing is an expensive sport, but the new bid goes a different way. You don't have to buy your own boat. The organisation provides the boats. So there won't be the big financial outlay to keep maintaining your own boat. Obviously, you need a better boat to train in. But fingers crossed with how they're really pushing it and creating more opportunities for a wider range of disabilities. Sailing's really opening up the doors to everyone to get involved for this Paralympic bid.
I think very often for visually impaired people, it's not necessarily their concerns. It's the concerns of friends and family and the expectation of those around them. And that's where getting it back into the Paralympics for the visually impaired as a class of its own, it'll be a door that will open, because then people will see that in the Paralympics and know that actually it's a safe sport, it's a fun sport, and it's open to everybody.
And I think you've got to have a go day coming up, haven't you?
We've got to have a go down the 17th of April. And I know we've spoken a lot about racing and a lot about the Paralympics, but there's more to sailing. I can honestly say when I was younger, it gave me the ability to communicate and travel, which got me a work experience job. I think it's not just about the racing, it's about everything that sometimes as a visually impaired person, you can feel the door can often close quite quickly. But 17th of April at Rutland, it'll be out on the British Blind Sport website. It'll be out on our website in the forthcoming weeks. But we also have our massive Sea Sailing Your Way programme all around the UK. So you don't have to travel to Rutland. You can get in touch and get on board one of the Sea Sailing Your Way programmes.
Lucy Hodges, Vicky Sheen, thank you both very much. And that's it for today. We welcome your comments and your questions as always. Email in touch at bbc.co.uk or leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skips News, week commencing 3rd of February 2026.
The Newport area, 15 to 16 K Street. Unity Hall, 20 St Thomas Square, 8 Chapel Street. The Newport area skips, 26 Red Fox Square.
Ryde area, Nationwide Building Society, 3 St Thomas's Square, James House, Church Lane, 141 High Street. Wootton area skips, 111 St Edmund's Walk.
Cowes and East Cowes area, the Portland Inn, Worsley Road, Gurnard. Carville Court, Terminus Road. 15 Clarence Road, East Cowes. Sea Breeze, York Avenue, East Cowes. The Cowes area skips, 17 West Hill Road.
Ventnor area, Old Town Hall Court, Albert Street. Ventnor area skips, 1 Sydenham House, Hamborough Road.
The Sandown area, 52 Fitzroy Street, the Bayshore Hotel Esplanade.
Brading area skips, 6 Nicholas Close. Freshwater area, Tennyson Buildings, Tennyson Road.